All the or bad ideas.
You're listening to the Breece Creator Podcast. I'm Lee Breece. Welcome one, welcome all to the greatest podcast that belongs to me. In this project, hear about Purdue Architecture, how unsanitary colleges, and a crazy freak accident that I keep forgetting to talk about in this podcast. As always, great stories to share and ideas to talk about in this episode. Whether you go to McDonald's or prefer Burger King, amateur or expert, there's something in this episode just for you. I've got a lot to talk about in this action-packed episode. Be sure to keep your ears where they're at and be prepared for some jokes. It's time to get the show started. All right, welcome to another episode of the podcast not recorded from my basement back home. Again, I am in Purdue University. I'm a solid 7 weeks in, so things are going well. Things are going great as far as school is concerned. Lots of other things I want to address, though, and talk about in the podcast, just kind of things that have been going on. And then I also talk about being just from the student perspective, some of the architecture, some of the design things at the school, and maybe some of the things I might poke out. Again, this is a creator podcast. I'm going to try to focus and hone in on those kind of things. But at the same time, I do like to talk about other things in this podcast. Just tune in and listen in. We got a great amount of things to share in this episode. First off, I want to say I was incredibly surprised as how great the acoustics were in the practice room that I used here at Purdue University. I'm in the Honors College in the basement. They have two quote-unquote practice rooms that you can use. You can check out a key and you can practice music or whatever. They have pianos in them, which is really nice. I say quote-unquote because they're not really practice rooms, but nonetheless, after recording my last episode in here, I was actually really surprised. But then again, back home in my basement, I record the podcast in a huge open room. It's right next to the furnace room with the water heater running in the furnace and the dehumidifier. There's a lot of background noise and the sound bounces around everything, and it kind of does in this room too, but I noticed in the podcast that it didn't seem like that at all. So when I say that this really isn't a practice room, it's kind of really not. It's really like a small room with a door. And even that, like the door still sits there's still like a solid like half-inch gap between the floor and the bottom of the door. And like, if you know, like practice rooms that are designed for like rehearsal rooms, like for bands, orchestras, choirs, when you have like a series of practice rooms, they usually have their own ventilation system. They're airtight. They have special wall and ceiling tiles and floor tiles and everything. They're very acoustically sound. The sound is just very dead. It just drops in that room. All the sound's absorbed. And here it kind of bounces around a little bit. The walls are drywall, the floor is carpet, and the ceiling is drop ceiling, which means a newer building, so it's all modern. So aesthetically, there's nothing wrong with it, but I'm just saying that it's not really a practice room. And the biggest design flaw probably in all of this is that the basement of the Honors College is designed to be like a rec room space. So you have like the laundry room, you have like a rec room with lounge space, and there's a ping pong table and there's other spaces. There's vending machines and whatnot. There's a lot of utility stuff down here, but like I said, there's still some places where you can mess around downstairs. There's an art room too, some other facilities. But going back to what I said about, well acoustically designed practice rooms is that they typically have their own ventilation system. Well, the ventilation for these rooms is just like any other room in the building. So, I mean, I sit in the practice room and I look right above me. There's, one of those typically huge ceiling vents. And the design flaw is not that it's loud when the air comes on, but when someone's practicing in here, the sound just echoes throughout the whole basement. And in combination with the huge gap underneath the door to the outside, to the hallway, it's like you might as well just not have the door shut, and you might as well just not have a practice room, because the sound just echoes wherever you are, and it just sounds like you're actually in the room with the person, no matter where you are in this basement. And this basement's pretty big. I mean, it's probably like 1,000 square feet, probably like 600 square feet of accessible space by students. That includes hallway and rooms, and I think there's restrooms down here. I'm not really sure where they are. That's kind of hidden to me, but it's like I said, it echoes everywhere. So hopefully, even as I record this podcast, I'm not disturbing other students in their studies or whatever they're doing. So one thing I forgot to mention in the last episode that I really, really wanted to was the fact that I had it wasn't life or death. It wasn't that. It was just probably the most unique circumstance I have ever been in, and probably will be in my whole life. Like, you ever watch those videos on YouTube of like luckiest people in the world, and they have like security cameras of people like a truck crashes into a wall and the person was just in the right position to not get hit or slide under the truck, or someone was laying on the road and they were in the right position to just get run over rather than them being like, run over by the truck. They were just, the truck ran over them, but they were unarmed. You know what I'm saying? Kind of like that. Well, this is kind of like that scenario. So literally, move-in day. I moved in Friday of move-in weekend. So you could move in Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. This is actually early move-in because I was going to band camp. So this is like a week before everyone else moves in. But I mean, the move-in time was like 9 to like 4. And I'm leaving the house, and, I was so busy all summer that I never really ever thought about actually going to college. Like, that just wasn't something that crossed my mind like ever this summer. And so I was packing last minute. Of course, I didn't leave. Literally, I did not leave the house to come to Purdue, which is like an hour away. I didn't leave till like 2:30. And when I was going with my mom and my sister, and we're all riding in the truck, and I'm driving, and it's really tight, because it's a pickup truck, and you got 3 people, and 1 line of seats. It wasn't that bad. But anyway, we're going up 65 to get to Purdue. I usually, if you really care about how I get to places, and you're from Indiana, I take 65 to 52. There's this county road off 52 called 800S. I take over to 231 right into campus. So there you go, a little bit more information than you actually wanted. But anyway, so I'm going up 65, and I am like less than 1,000 feet from the exit to 52 off I-65, and all of a sudden, I mean, it's hard to describe to the people not familiar with the interstate system, or just the interstate system in Indiana, period. But the road that, the way I-65 works after just past Lebanon is that it goes from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, and then when it does that, it goes around this, goes over a bridge, and then it goes around this curve, and these curves are surrounded by trees, so you can't really see around the corner. And it's a curve, it's a turn. I mean, it's a turn on an interstate, which is, depending on how the engineering is done and whatnot, that could be very dangerous. I know when they came out with 465. Back in the 50s and the 60s in Indianapolis, it was just such a foreign concept to so many drivers. They had issues with truck drivers like overturning or flipping. They would take the turn too hard, they'd be going too fast, and the truck would flip. And eventually they lowered the speed limit, but it was just that unfamiliarity with the the engineering and how to design interstates and stuff like that. But anyway, so we're going on 65. We're less than 1,000 feet from the exit for 52. The next block, the next threshold to get where I need to go. And out of nowhere, this truck, semi-truck, all of a sudden I'm driving, and I see out from around the corner that I can't see a huge cloud of dust. I mean, it was dry. The dirt was very dry. Huge cloud of dust, and all of a sudden, I see the semi come running across the median, the grass median in between the opposite direction of the highway. This truck's heading southbound. I'm heading northbound. And he cuts across the median. The trailer flips off and spins off with a loud thud in the median, and the truck keeps going, and you see him fishtail, and it looks like he's about to flip, but then he finds a way to regain control and go straight down the southbound traffic, but he's going in the emergency lane, so no cars were hit, but the semi flipped, and it was an open semi. There was nothing covering the cargo. It was almost like a dump truck semi. Like it didn't have a dumping feature, but it wasn't like a regular semi-trailer in that sense. And the semi-trailer was hauling all these cubes of scrap metal. And the scrap metal, these things were heavy, and these things spilled all over the interstate. Made a huge mess, and in order to avoid the collision with some of these metal cubes, the two cars ran into each other that were right in front of me. In fact, I have a picture that I posted on my personal Facebook page. I'll share it to my Creator Podcast and the Breece Woodworking pages, and I'll put it on the website in the show notes. You can check that out at breecewoodworking.wixsite.com/Creator Podcast. And it was an epic picture because you see all these cubes of scrap metal, you see fire trucks, you see people running around, and there is my pickup truck in the back of all of it. And it was definitely, I wouldn't say it was horrifying because nobody got hurt. It was scary, but I felt like I was a safe enough distance away because like when the truck initially crossed the median, I was about 100 feet away from the truck and the whole accident and everything. It was like, plus I was in the right lane on the northbound traffic. So I wasn't really like I wasn't like the first line of defense. I wasn't like I was going to be struck by anything that came my way, but it was definitely a unique situation, like I said, that I'll probably never ever be in again. And the thing is that we're all sitting there. I mean, I'm already late. I mean, I'm sitting there. It's 3:00. I have an hour left to move in at Purdue, and I'm sitting there like, I gotta go. I can't wait for the cops to show up. I can't wait for the fire truck to show up. We gotta go. And the problem was all of the people in front of me just parked their cars and got out. Now, I mean, of course, they're all being good Samaritans. They're doing what they're supposed to do. The inner Jerry Seinfeld or the Seinfeld-esqueness in me wanted to be the anti-hero, wanted to be the guy that said, I just got to go. I can't be around for this. I want to move on. It's a very George Costanza-like thing to want to have done. I know I shouldn't have done that, but I mean, everybody was okay, It's not like a car just flipped and I need to go check to see if everyone was all right. I mean, the interstate was a mess. These huge cubes of scrap metal were beyond what any of us could lift, or even a combination of us could lift. So really all that I did was I got out of the truck because everyone else did. I tried to force my way out. There was a couple of people, like the first 5 people in line, like I was like the people that were in front of the cars that like hit each other. Like they hit each other, but it wasn't a big deal. Like they got a little dents in their car, some scratches. But people that were in front of them just kept going or whatever. And then the people behind them, the people that stayed, and they all got out of their car and they started talking to each other and, made a big social hour, and me, I'm like, come on, I gotta go. And I sat there for like 10 minutes. I'm like, screw this. And the thing was, this is what really ticked me off about this whole situation, is that in order to get all the stuff that I needed to get to Purdue, like in the truck, like the futon, boxes of clothes, whatever, all that crap, I had to take all the stuff out of the back of the truck. And I keep an emergency toolbox in the back of my truck just for situations like this. Just for situations where I need tools, huge crowbar, sledgehammer, broom. That was really what I needed. What I needed was a broom. I was so upset because I always have that stuff with me. And it was that one time I took it out of the truck that I needed it. I didn't have it. Isn't that Murphy's Law? Why that? Of course, that just happens to everybody at some point, doesn't it? It probably happens to you like it happens to me. Happens all the time. Anyway, so I get out of the truck and I'm just picking up shrapnel off the road with my bare hands. I'm throwing it to the side, but really all the stuff that I'm picking up off the interstate is like stuff that was already there, like little bits of plastic of people's, light, the reflectors, the lights, or pieces of trash. There wasn't really any like scrap metal debris to pick up. And finally, of course, the fire truck and the sheriff was already there. I had spoken with him, and he said that once I had the opportunity, well, he phrased it like this. He said, once we give everybody the go-ahead, you can go. Like, you're free to go. And I was like, okay, great. Because that didn't do anything for me because everybody in front of me was still there. Well, the guy that was in front of me was driving like a utility truck, like a red utility truck, like a V8 with the toolboxes, Super Duty truck. And he was like, initially he was really giving me a hard time because he didn't feel like I said, I sat in my truck for like 10 or 15 minutes before I actually did anything. He was giving me a really hard time because he didn't think I was being a jerk for not helping the crowd and try to clean up the mess, which no one was really doing because, like I said, you can't really lift these blocks. But then all of a sudden, after like 10 minutes of him, giving everyone like me a hard time, he pulls out chains from the back of his truck and then he starts dragging cubes out of the way. And basically, here's what he did. So the cops are going around the scene. They're talking to the people who crashed into each other. They're talking to people. They're all over the interstate. They're doing this, that, and the other. And this guy, he pulls like 2 cubes of scrap metal out of the way and then he's gone. He wraps up the chains, he drives through the traffic, waits for a little window between the cops, and he's gone. He goes, passes like 5 or 6 cars that were in front of him. He's gone. I'm like, thanks a lot, guy. I mean, geez, like that's what I wanted to do. And so it was like, it was very hypocritical. It was very much like a Seinfeld episode in the sense that, he was giving me a hard time. Then he does his due diligence, his good Samaritan, then he leaves. And of course, shortly after I did the same thing. I pulled up a little bit. I waited till the sheriff turned his back and then boom, I was gone. And the crazy thing is that if you know anything about interstates in Indiana, if you know anything about I-65, especially northbound, if you know anything about I-69, especially southbound, you know that there are 2 lanes throughout the majority of the state. They should totally be 3 lanes. I'm waiting for a governor who runs for a 3-lane campaign. I'm seriously, there's going to be a governor one day who runs on a 3-lane campaign to make I-65 and I-69 3 lanes through all of Indiana. That's going to be a thing one day. But they're always clogged. They're always congested. It's a pain in the ass to drive on because it's just a real annoying. You're constantly going bumper to bumper with people at 80 miles an hour, 85 miles an hour, 90 miles an hour. It's kind of annoying in that aspect. And oh my goodness, what is it with Illinois drivers? Like, why is this such a characteristic of Illinois people? Illinois drivers, for some reason, always cruise in the left lane. And if you know anything about driving, which I'm assuming most of you do, if not all of you, is that the left lane is supposed to be a passing lane, right? So you're supposed to drive in the right lane, but then when you need to pass somebody, then you go in the left lane. Well, Illinois people do the exact opposite. They just sit in the left lane, and even when you ride their butt, they still don't get over. And it's like who the heck do you think you are? And it's just like it's such a reoccurring thing. It's just like it's always Illinois people that do that. In fact, I had the same exact conversation with my biology teacher in high school. He said the same exact thing. And I've talked to other people, agreement, same thing. I don't know what it is about Illinois drivers and the left lane thing. Maybe they've got a lot of British people over there in that state. I don't know. A lot of immigrants, it's whatever. I'm a college student. I don't drive that much anymore. I do drive back and forth, I guess, on the interstate, but not a lot. It's whatever. But anyway, so we got past the accident, and oh my goodness, the interstate. It was like a dream. Like it was like you had no context for what was going on because there were no cars. Like you just looked at the southbound traffic because I'm heading northbound. You look at the southbound traffic and there's nothing. The southbound traffic is so full and packed, and there's all these drivers, and then like the northbound lane, there's nothing. And of course, when there's like an open lane highway with, no construction, no cars, it's very tempting to challenge the speed limit like you wouldn't do anyway. But the frustrating thing about that, though, is that the I-65 really doesn't get you to Purdue because I-65 kind of goes more like it goes northeast of Purdue, actually goes northeast of Lafayette, and Purdue's in West Lafayette, so you have to find a way to cross town. But just because of how clear the road was, we decided to take 65 a little bit longer than cut over. I think like in the middle of Lafayette, it's been honestly, it's literally been like 2 months. So I don't really remember that much, but it was definitely, like I said, one of the most unique circumstances. And by trying to describe it to you in this podcast, just doesn't do justice for what happened that day. It was such a freak accident. It was amazing that nothing, like there was no severe accident, no severe damage. There was no injuries. They were able to clean up the highway, and that was it. It was reopened. And the other great thing, it was obviously on the news. But one thing that I've noticed, especially like around like just outside Indianapolis, is that like news teams have been taking advantage of like Facebook Live or like Instagram Live and stuff like that. I don't think Twitter has a live, but so what they do is that if you don't know, there's cameras on like all these different parts of the interstate, especially around metropolitan areas. And so what I've seen a lot is that if there's an accident or something, they'll find a camera on the highway that's focused on that exact spot, and they'll do like a live stream. So then if you're stuck in traffic, you can like watch the live feed of what's going on, like where the accident is. You can figure out, what's going on, how long it's going to take, stuff like that. It's really pretty cool, actually. My mom, she got in a traffic jam when she was coming back from my grandma's house one time, and my mom's folks are up by Northwest Indiana, up in Lake County, up in the region. And so she was coming back from there, and she got stuck around Lebanon coming back, and it was a traffic jam, and I found a live feed of the accident that she was stuck behind, and I was able to watch it, give her updates and stuff like that. For the person stuck in traffic, I guess it tells you what's going on, but it really doesn't do much for you because you just get to watch what's going on. You don't actually get to have an impact or, yell at the people to move faster, that kind of thing. So funny stories are over now. Let's go more into some of these things that are happening at Purdue, and let's go back to maybe some of the creator side of the podcast. So one of the unique things about Purdue from when my mom was here in the 70s, and obviously Purdue, anything has changed a lot since the 70s. I'm not going to lie, just about anything has changed a lot since the 70s. But Purdue is kind of unique in the fact that, Purdue's changed a lot since the 70s when my mom was here, but most of the change that's happened really has been in the last 10 years. So like a lot of the buildings that have been rebuilt or torn down or remodeled or whatever has really occurred like in the last 10 years. Like the rec center was finished in 2012. 3rd Street Suite, which is the newest major dorm, was finished in 2013. The Honors College was finished in 2016. First Street Towers has been within the last 10 years. That's another huge dorm. There's been a lot of other construction projects. The Walk, which is the Wilmuth Active Learning Center, which is a multi-million dollar study hall, which I'm kind of surprised that Mitch Daniels encouraged that project, but it's a cool little place. There's a lot of wasted space, a lot of like 4-story corridors and huge stairwells and stuff like that take up a lot of space. But it's an interesting building. The only thing though about having that nice of a study hall is that trying to get a desk in there or a place to sit down and study is like trying to find a ticket to the Super Bowl. You just go in there and it's always packed. But the amazing thing is that like with how many people are in there, it's always quiet. It's not like library quiet, but just for like the amount of people in there, you're just kind of surprised how like zoned in everybody is actually doing studying. Oh, the Kroc Leadership Center, which is just a bunch of offices / study space, also 2013. So there's the dining court that's less than 10 years old. Like I said, most of the change here at Purdue, and I don't know why, but for most of the change that's been here has been within the last 10 years. And the Active Learning Center just opened up, I want to say a couple weeks ago. It was like the 2nd or 3rd week of school when it opened. In fact, I went to the grand, not really the grand opening, but they dedicated a painting to one of the rooms in there, and it was actually donated by the foundation that I applied to a scholarship to. So I got to meet the people that didn't give me the scholarship, which was unique in its own right. And then got to listen to Mitch Daniels talk, which if you don't know who Mitch Daniels is the president of Purdue University. He is a former governor of Indiana, who's also been a president of Eli Lilly. He's a Princeton graduate. He's done a lot of other big successful things. He was an advisor to Ronald Reagan. He worked for Richard Lugar, which Richard Lugar is another famous politician from Indiana. But Mitch Daniels is a big deal. And he was, when he was governor, he was super popular. Very, very successful guy in terms of politics. And there was a lot of talk, a lot of people in the Republican Party for the last 8 or 12 years wanted him to run for president. And he said no. Obviously, there's some family circumstances and stuff like that that made him turn it down at the time. I'm not going to say he's not going to do it, but I'm saying that when he was asked to, there were family things that I'm sure were reasons that made him turn down running for president. But arguably he would have been, he wouldn't have been Ronald Reagan, but he probably would have been the greatest president since Ronald Reagan. I know I'm biased just because he's a conservative and Ronald Reagan's also a conservative, but truly he would have been. So Mitch, being being in Mitch Daniels' presence is an awe-inspiring experience. No matter what you're hearing him speak, what he's saying, what you're doing, what the context is, what the situation, whether you're just in the room with him or you're listening to him speak. Like I said, being around him is just super cool, and just because I want to be a politician and just be a successful person in general is just, it's very dreamy. Mitch Daniels and Ronald Reagan are both kind of like, if I was a 13-year-old girl, like they would be my Justin Bieber, just to kind of draw a comparison for you there. And Mitch Daniels was very successful in really establishing a political career for himself. And I would just love to find some way to work one-on-one with him or get some learning experience or just talk to him. Oh my goodness, the dude is so intelligent. And here's the great thing that I learned. I wasn't talking with him, but I was talking with the student representative to the Board of Trustees here at Purdue. And, one of the things I never quite understood about Mitch Daniels was just, the guy's a great politician, don't get me wrong, but I just never really understood why he was so popular in comparison with other politicians. Not just in Indiana, but the whole country. Like, why was Mitch Daniels so popular? And one of the things that the student representative of the Board of Trustees really hit home with me is just how incredible Mitch Daniels is at budgeting. In terms of balancing a budget, coming in under budget, doing budgeting is just an incredible skill that he has. In fact, I was reading an article. I think it was like a transcript of an interview that someone did with Mitch Daniels, and he said that the best thing that prepared him for the political world was being in business and having a bottom line and expecting things of people, and making sure those goals are met. Goal setting also very important. None of this you did a good job, slap on the back, go back to the office. It's you're here to do a job, and if you don't do that job, we might have to have a change here. You got to make sure you understood why you were hired, and you have to accomplish what I asked you to do. Like that is Mitch Daniels' bottom line. And that incredibly inspiring to me. The dude's amazing, like I said, but budgeting is his big thing. And so one of the big things that I know going into politics that I'm going to have to develop is learning how to budget, running a business, budgeting. I'm kind of torn between two worlds here. And I know I keep digressing on different topics, but one of my struggles here at Purdue University is that I am torn between a guy that loves his country and wants to serve his country. Because, before I even ever went to Purdue or even thought about going to Purdue, I had my heart set on going to the Naval Academy for like 6 or 8 years. It was a long time. And then, I didn't get in. I really didn't think I had a shot at getting in, to be honest. But I didn't get in. I decided to come to Purdue. I decided not to do ROTC because I have a full ride here to Purdue. And it's kind of like, well, I could do ROTC, but it really wouldn't be a benefit to me other than being in the military, I guess, if that's a benefit. Which, like I said, service to this country is very important to me personally, just because you have... it's hard to grasp just how unique of a situation it is to be in the United States, and to think and just try to, when you try to think about that, and you just think about, people who take that for granted. And I just don't want to be one of those people that takes the opportunity to be born in this country for granted. I definitely want to pay my fair share, give back to my country, and defend people who deserve to be defended. There have been great people in this country who have accomplished great things for humanity, and they deserve to have someone protect them, and they deserve to have people who love this country be of service to them. And I think that being a part of the military, if not just public service in general, which public service can be anything. I usually use public service to describe politics, because that's what politics is supposed to be. It's supposed to be public service. But just being involved in your community, building anything cliche from building a house or building a playground or serving at a homeless shelter. Just being involved and being in your community. One of the things that really ticked me off in high school was that, most of the teachers that I had, they didn't live in Brownsburg. I went to Brownsburg High School. None of these teachers, were in the community. They didn't really care about what was going on at the school, about the spirit days and the football games. They didn't really care about what was going on in the town, and they weren't there to build a connection with you or the community. These people, I had a teacher who was very, very transparent. She lives in Greenwood, Yet she was a teacher at Brownsburg. And there's another teacher that I had who was from Batesville, and Batesville is an hour and a half away from Brownsburg. Can you imagine driving an hour and a half commute every day, twice a day, in fact? And the other person who came from Greenwood, she just told me that she was very flat out. She just said, I don't want anything to do with the place that I live. I just want to be able to go to work and go home. And, I completely understand the point that she was trying to make. But what I didn't but to me, it's like, there's no sense of community here. Nobody cares about each other. How are you supposed to learn but if you're not able to make a connection? What's the point of having a teacher if they're just there to be an object? The part of the reason that people say, people are arguing against all these online schools and online academies is they think that it takes a human being to actually help people grasp concepts. And I perfectly agree with that. But if a teacher is there to be an object, if a teacher is there just to instruct, then they are doing exactly the same as somebody could do in a YouTube video or an article online. If they're not going to be of a personable presence to people, then there's no reason for them to be there, in my opinion. In my opinion, in that case, you can just learn online, which is with the internet nowadays. I've talked about it before. I have no idea what the future of education is because of the internet. There's so many things that you used to have to go to school for to learn. This includes college degrees. Especially with very tangible skills like electrical engineering, designing, languages and stuff like that. All that stuff can be learned online now, and you don't even have to have a program to use this stuff. There's always free stuff out there on YouTube, endless amount of blogs, endless amount of online resources that you can use to learn this stuff. But the thing is, just because you teach it to yourself, how are you able to give yourself, how are you able to be credible? How are you able to be, to put that on your resume? How do you describe that to someone else if you didn't go to college for it? And that's kind of like my question for the future in education. And that's kind of something I'm kind of curious about. And that's kind of like why, people are really giving me a hard time for being in the School of Liberal Arts here at Purdue. And people are, given the fact that I actually, I have a very successful woodworking account. I do a woodworking shop. I love building things, love designing things. I love the analytical side of all of that. People ask me, all the time. I have people DM me on Instagram all the time asking me, how is it that you're not interested in engineering? How is it that you're majoring in political science and economics? And, just being, and there's people, with very conservative backgrounds who just are very hardcore STEM. If you go to college, you got to major in STEM. Otherwise, you might as well not go to college. And there's people with political perspectives I agree with, and they're very stern on that, and they just look down at me with disdain because I'm studying a liberal arts major. And to me, I say, my first passion, like I said, is public service. But, bottom line is that if there's a recession and I can't find a job doing what I learned my degree in, the internet is such a powerful tool. I would love to flip houses. If someone wanted to give me the money, I would flip houses. But if I did that right now, in the current time period that I have now, instead of going to college, I would never have had the opportunity to study what I'm studying now to get other kinds of jobs that I could get. Whereas if I decided to flip houses, I could always pick that up. I could always use the internet to learn the skills that I need to do that. And that's why I'm kind of am where I am. It's just like the power of the internet. It's incredible what you can do. There's a quote that I came up with. I posted on Twitter. Who knows how long ago? It's probably a year ago at this point. And it really kind of hits home with kind of the power of the internet and kind of the power of creators. So this is a creator podcast, and I really get away from some of the creator concepts and some of the things I really want to illustrate with this podcast, but just a little word of inspiration that I always think of all the time. Imagine with your imagination and let your dreams break the seams. Make with your hands and create with your heart. If you can find a way to be tangible with your skills, you can find a way to be applicable. Use what you know to make a change, to improve something. My grandfather, he had 3 things that he said that you always have to get out of what you do. You have to be able to provide for your family, you have to be able to have an impact on your community, and you got to be able to take care of yourself. Being able to take care of you and your family is huge. And being able to have an impact on your community. And going back to the whole teacher thing, that's what I'm talking about. That's what society is lacking today. If you're curious about the division in this country, it's purely that. And the only issue I have with diversity, I took an environmental science class. Okay, I understand how important diversity is in terms of the success of species, or the success of regimes, or the success of society. Diversity is important, but the issue I'm having with diversity is that there's people who have very specific beliefs, specific backgrounds, ethnicities, and that they stay within their tight group. And the issue I have with immigration is that there's so many people come into this country who come here to do whatever they did back in their country. They're not coming here to be a part of America. They're coming here to do things that they want to do, that they could do in their country, but now they're doing it here. And they don't really become a part of a greater community that is America. And that's kind of where this division comes from. Is these people with different backgrounds who kind of ignore each other. The great thing about small town America is that, you got to rely on the people around you, and you got to love the people around you, and you got to expect, be able to lean on one another, with help a neighbor out, the volunteer fire department, the volunteer police department, all the community events and stuff like that. And that's why I really love that small town environment, because everybody knows everybody. The thing about, regardless of how big of a city is, you've got everything you could possibly think of, from the different religious sects. You have churches and mosques, and then you have, the special facilities for these people. You have the people who do this, and you have the people who do that. And there's just no way to connect all these people. And so you get differentiating ideas, and there's never a conversation. Okay, I saw, if you're like me, I watch 60 Minutes every Sunday night. I rarely watch television, but 60 Minutes is actually one of the shows that I actually do watch regularly, at least somewhat anyway. But they had a story, and I'm not really big on watching political news stories online, just because or on television, just because they're typically biased. But I watched a story on 60 Minutes with Oprah. I can't believe I'm saying I watched a 60-minute story with Oprah Winfrey. I can't believe I'm saying that. What the whole story was talking about, obviously President Donald Trump's progress. It was 6 months into his presidency. Want to know how America was doing, not how Donald Trump was doing, but she went out to explore to see how America was doing in terms of the division. And the great thing was that she took people with different backgrounds. She had an equal number of supporters of Clinton and Trump, and they just had a conversation. And it was amazing because you got to watch the conversation, and just kind of from start to finish, you got to see the change and the continuities and whatnot. And it was just amazing by the end of the conversation how you took people who had built brick walls to isolate themselves from other people. You had built people who had shut other people out. You had changed people who had isolated themselves so much. And all of a sudden, what you thought was impossible was suddenly happened. It suddenly was done. These people became friends with one another. They united with each other. They went out to dinner afterwards. I mean, it was incredible to see these people bonding, even with these different perspectives. And although that's just political, but you're talking about all the differences of people in America with the religious backgrounds and the cultural differences, and the type of food you eat and where you live, where you're from, your lifestyle, your sexuality, things like that. Those kind of barriers, they build barriers between people. And because the people are different, there's no conversation. And like I said, diversity is very important to success of this country and the success of society in general. But my only problem with society is that diversity encourages lack of dialogue, lack of conversation. And if we're going to praise diversity in this country and in society, then we've got to learn to start having conversations with people that we don't agree with people that we don't are scared of, people we don't know anything about. We've got to start that dialogue, and we've got to build a community. And the thing is about building a community is that when you build a community, the people in it may be diverse, but the ideas and the concepts and the characteristics are all shared. You got to understand that even though people are different, that people are the same. People unite for one purpose. They don't unite because of different reasons. And if we're gonna have a community, we got to find a way to create a community with common principles. And I don't like being political in this podcast, but that's just something that I'm really starting to notice here on campus. Especially as I watch news stories of things that are going on, it's incredibly obvious to me that there's just so much difference in this country, and because of the amount of diversity is increasing, the level of conflict is increasing, and it's just because we're not having dialogue with each other. We're losing this whole concept of the community because people want to bond with people who are similar to them. That's just inherent in human nature. And if we're not going to do that, then we're going to continue to have this division in the country and all these conflicts that we have now. So, wow, what an incredible digression that progressed to be. I originally was talking about some of the ways Purdue's campus has changed, but it eventually evolved into a political statement. So going back to Purdue and how it's changed a lot since my mom's been here. Like I said, my mom was here in the 70s. What I ended with was that the Wilmoth Acting Learning Center is one of the newest buildings on campus. And what I was trying to get to beyond that is that the Bechtel Innovative Design Center they had their grand opening, but the building's technically not open to students yet. It's technically still locked. I'm not really sure what the timeline is on that or when it's going to open. It's kind of frustrating, really, because the thing's done. The crazy thing about movies are done a year before they're released. The editing and everything, it's done a year before the actual premiere is. Buildings are technically finished 3 months before they actually open, at least. That's just the way it is. I don't know why. That's just the way it is. But anyway, so what this design center is on campus, if you're not familiar with Purdue, Purdue is a largely STEM university. There's a lot of emphasis, on engineering, on math majors, on science majors, all stuff like that. And so one of the things that in order to be a STEM university, you kind of have to live up to the technology of the time. And kind of cool, we've talked about makerspaces on this podcast before, and that's really what the Design Center is. It's a makerspace for students here on campus, and the really nice thing about it is that it's not just a cheap makerspace in the back of a leased out garage somewhere. This is a very nice, very expensive, very nice equipment, innovative design center. I think, the Bechtel Innovative Design Center. It's like I said, big makerspace. There's places where you can work on huge projects. They have all kinds of tools. They have CNC machines. They have milling machines. Oh my goodness, the possibilities are endless. If you've ever wanted to try out some of these $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 pieces of equipment, here's where you can do it. You have to be a student at Purdue to get in. But I don't really know what the policy is. I'm sure you can't bring in your own material. I'm sure they only let certain students use it. I mean, there's all kinds of safety precautions. You have to understand. I mean, they're not going to let people who aren't trained, use this equipment. I'm definitely sure about that. But we'll just have to see. Like I said, the building's not open yet. I have seen a sneak peek of it, though. They do have woodworking. Oh my goodness! Here we are in the 21st century, and a brand new building has a woodworking shop in it, and I am so excited. Although I really thought about the practicality of it, and I just don't I don't see myself ever really using it. Just because, one of the great things about having your own shop is that you're just kind of used to your own tools and your own layout. And typically the things you're making for home, at least for me anyway. There's some things I want to make for here at my dorm room at Purdue, which I'm kind of shooting the gun because it's almost fall break and I'm going to be able to spend a couple days out in the shop. So I'll have more making perspective after I do that. But I really don't think I'm ever going to use the Innovative Design Center here at Purdue just because I can't imagine all my supplies are at home, all my screws, glue, clamps, favorite drill, all that stuff's at home. The paint that I would use or the stain or the finish, they don't have that stuff here. I have to go out and buy it, and it's just if I can't start and finish the project here, then why would I ever make it here? The other thing too is that I have no material here, and I'm very sure that they're not gonna let you use trash, which is what my woodworking supply is. I guarantee they're not gonna let you use trash on some of these, all this very nice equipment. And actually, kind of a comparison here to the past. My dad also went to Purdue, also in the 70s, and he was kind of similar to me in the fact that He was self-taught. He had a very was very passionate for woodworking. I talk about him a lot in this podcast. But the difference between him and me, though, is that I've learned a lot of my skills off doing and the internet, where he learned a lot of his skills off doing and books, which I have no mental capacity whatsoever to read books. So I applaud to him for actually learning woodworking from books with no pictures, just all written descriptions. Oh my gosh, how hard would that be? Incredibly hard. But anyway, when he came to Purdue, he took woodshop classes when he was here. He was a construction management major, but because he had prior experience woodworking, he talked to the teacher, and he got into the upper level woodworking courses and stuff like that. And I'm assuming that with whatever safety policy they have here at the Innovative Design Center, I'm going to have to find a way to finagle people into letting me use this equipment, because similar to what I talked about earlier in this podcast, there's no way for me to demonstrate, other than building something, there's no way for me to put on a resume what my skills are, because they're not technically I learned them from doing and from watching videos on the internet. I can't just put, School of Woodworking on my resume, because I didn't go to a School of Woodworking. So I'm going to have to finagle these people into believing me that I actually know what I'm doing and know what I'm talking about, as far as a lot of things are concerned. And the other thing is that I'm really excited to get my hands on their CNC machines, because the bandsaw that I made, oh my goodness, all those parts were hand cut out, and there are some parts that really need to be professionally machined, on a CNC machine. So I'm definitely very excited to be able to CNC some new parts, because that bandsaw really needs some new parts really bad, because I did a really bad job on making some of those things. Like trunnions, if you understand what a trunnion is, a trunnion allows something to rotate on a zero, in place. So trunnions on a bandsaw lets me tilt the table, but it doesn't change the center when I tilt it, if you understand what I'm saying. If I had a hinge, the hinge, if I were to hinge the table and I were to lift it up, the center of the table would change. But on the trunnions, since it rotates in place, because the trunnion is basically a semicircle, like a semicircle bearing, and it just rotates back and forth on a circle. So the center stays the same. But the problem is that they have to be very precise to work, and mine are not precise whatsoever. So I can't wait to CNC those parts, and hopefully improve them a lot better. Or improve them. I want to improve them a lot more. Man, can't you just tell I'm getting a college education? My grammar's just on point. So the last thing I want to touch up on in this episode is just kind of a personal update. Some people, when they're kids, they get crazy sick. They have chicken pox and tonsillitis, and they get colds and the flu, strep throat, name it all. When I was a kid, I got sick a lot. I'm not going to lie, but I got the flu, I got the stomach flu, I got colds all the time, I had allergy attacks. I think I had strep throat once. I did have the chicken pox, but obviously I'm too young to remember what that was like. And, I've never had pneumonia or bronchitis or mono. I've never had any disease like that. But the thing is, I've had colds so often, I know what the process is for my body, in a cold. My cold process is a 4-day cycle. First day, it's a sore throat. The second day is a runny nose. The third day is a stuffed up nose, and the fourth day is really when I start to get better. But what was weird is I'm trying to you have to imagine having a sickness for the first time, having you just don't know what's going on. Try to imagine the time when you were a kid and you had a cold for the first time, and you had no idea what to expect. You had no idea what was going on. You didn't know if you're going to get better or not or whatever. And so that's kind of what happened to me last week. So actually, I guess it was 2 weeks ago now. And the thing is about Purdue, shout out to them for providing all these resources to students, but the medical facility they have here for students, it's backed up. They don't have enough doctors. They don't, you can't get an appointment there. It's just impossible to see anybody there. And the problem is, being an hour from home and having a busy schedule is that I can't really schedule a time for me to drive home and go to the doctor. The other thing is, too, is I don't have a vehicle, so it's not like I can just drive home. It would have to be at a convenience of my mother or a buddy or something like that to go take me to the doctor. So what happened was I woke up with a sore throat one day, and then I went to class and everything, and the next day, sore throat. Then I got incredibly tired, and then so after class, after band practice, I just went to bed, slept, all afternoon, all evening, and did the same thing the following day. And then I just progressively got worse and worse, but I still went to class. I still went to practice. Still went to the football game because I'm in the marching band. I kind of have to. And, I was just like, I don't understand what was going on because, it wasn't a cold, but yet I felt really bad. But because I wasn't experiencing like cold-like symptoms, like I really was just like sore throat and tired. Like I didn't feel like that would justify me like needing to skip class or something, because usually when I think of being sick, like I'm thinking like stuffy nose, fever, just all kinds of general disgustingness that would require you to just like not want to move. But for some reason, being tired, having a sore throat just really wasn't enough to justify to me that, hey, I need to rest and try to get better and whatnot. And so that was like that for a week. And then I went to the game and oh my goodness, I felt awful. And then I finally went after a week of illness. So usually, like I said, when my cold cycle is 4 days. So it's been 7 days and I've just gotten worse. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And so I finally go to the urgent care unit at a hospital near here or whatever. Urgent care is not like emergency or anything. Urgent care is just like a walk-in clinic. That's basically what urgent care is. I went to the doctor and he said I had bronchitis. So I had bronchitis for about 2 weeks. He gave me some anti-inflammatory stuff and antibiotics, and I got better. But he also said that I probably have mono. Great, that's what you want to hear from a doctor, especially when you're in college. He said that you got to have like symptoms for like 10 or 15 days before you can actually be diagnosed with mono, or if you take a test and it comes up positive. But I mean, the crazy thing was that he gave me the meds in like 2 days. Boom, I was better. Like I was up, I was going. I slept like 20 hours one day, but I mean, besides that, I mean, I was feeling a lot better. And the crazy thing was, like, here's the other thing too, lack of appetite. And the crazy thing about that was, like, when you're healthy, like, you can't imagine skipping a meal. Like, if you skip a meal, you get so hungry. But when I was sick last week, or I guess 2 weeks ago now, I didn't eat anything for 7 days. I didn't use any of my meal swipes. I was down and out for 7 days, no food. And but here's the thing though, like, I didn't feel hungry. I just never ate anything. And the really cool thing was I lost like 10 pounds. But, anyway, I was sick. I'm better now. I got a lot better right after he gave me the meds, so I didn't really feel like I needed to go back for a mono test. But it was kind of awkward. Like, what am I supposed to tell my teachers? I had to explain my lack of participation, everything. I had to tell them what was going on. Having to explain it over and over again, this was really, irritating, but I'm over it now. I think finally, I still had some symptoms as of a couple days ago, but I think now I'm fine, and my first time with bronchitis is over. Goodness gracious, praise the Lord. Hopefully I don't get that sick again, because honestly, like, here's the great thing. I really want to end this episode, but I got to talk about another thing in regards to illness and regards to the design of the Honors College. Going back to the Creator Podcast mentality here, or the mantra or whatever. So the great thing about the Honors College is that it's a really nice facility, but honestly, if the Honors College was built like 20 years ago, like with the same design, the same everything, like it would not, like, it was like if this building was 20 years old, like, it would be looked upon as one of the worst buildings on campus. It's just the fact that this building is newer that it's held with such high esteem, because this is a freshman dorm building, and it's designed for freshmen. So I mean, you got the communal bathrooms with the double bedroom, with the two people per room. I'm in a triple, which is a 3-person per room kind of situation. And the thing is that there's so many people in this college, there's so many people share a bathroom, that the place is just so unsanitary. And that's kind of what I'm learning about college, is that it's just a very unsanitary place. I feel like I'm one of those Native Americans when the Pilgrims came over. All this, I'm just getting bombarded with all this disease and all these germs. And it's just, because the bathrooms are just, kids are a mess, man. Like, come on, people. Like, they clean the bathrooms every single day, but to get the bathrooms as dirty as they are, like, when I'm in there, like, you have to, like, freaking pee on the ground and spit out your toothpaste on the counter. Like, come on, guys. Like, the place is a pigsty. And the place is just it's a habitat for germs, and it's very irritating. And the other thing is that the sinks, this is what irritates me so much. The sinks in the bathrooms in the Honors College do not have hot water, and they're low flow. They're like the sinks that you would expect to find like in a high school or an office building. They're like with the automatic shut off, It just ticks me off so much. the only, like, hot water is more important than soap. Like, you're going to get your hands cleaner with hot water than you would with soap. In my opinion, that's the case. And that's why I'm getting sick all the time, is because there's no hot water and I can't wash my hands with hot water. No matter where I go, it's all the automatic shut off, shut on sinks, which just, to me, it's just so irritating. Okay, the last thing I'm going to say in this episode, a really exciting piece of news. I'm going to talk about this later, but I was invited by the Political Science Department to represent Purdue at the Model UN conference in Bogota, Colombia. I have never been out of the country, let alone been on a really awesome trip. The farthest I've ever been away from home is New York City or St. Louis. I can't think of which is farther away, but either way, it's going to be an awesome experience. Again, it's not creator related, but I'm going to have a blast. I'm going to post tons of pictures, get lots of video of Colombia. It'll be an awesome experience. I got my passport and everything. I'm ready to go. We're going to be talking about that in a later episode of the podcast, and that trip's going to happen in about a month or so, so it'll be a little while before we have anything to say about that. As always, in the outro of this podcast, I want to play an artist who has released their music into the public domain. Artists who release their music into the public domain, I feel like, understand what art is and how it contributes to the world around it. So I'm going to end episode number 14 of the Breece Creator Podcast with Fade by Alan Walker. Check the show notes on the website to learn more about the song and the content in this episode at breecewoodworking.wixsite.com/creatorpodcast. You can tweet at us on Twitter, or you can follow us on Instagram. I'm Lee Breece. I'll see you next time on the Breece Creator Podcast.